It's very easy to throw around the phrase, what could have been, when talking about young racing drivers. But in the case of Paul Warwick, you just know that he had what it takes. But one failure ruined the chances of an almost certain superstar. This is the story of Paul Warwick, the Hampshire hero. Paul was born on the 29th of January 1969 in Alresford, Hampshire. His brother was the very familiar Derek Warwick, who went on to achieve 4 podiums in his 147 Formula One starts. But today we'll focus our attention on Paul. His career began in 1981, where he would race in the British Stock Car Racing Series in the Mini Stock Formula, before progressing through to the Superstocks class in 1984, where he would become the national champion that year at the age of 15, and due to altering on his race license, he'd be racing against much older and much more experienced racers at numerous events. In 1985, he would again become national champion alongside East Anglian champion. The next year, in 1986, Paul would compete in his first Formula Ford 1600 season, taking 8 of the 12 Dunlop Autosport Future Star rounds as he would cruise to the title, and he'd be seeing double vision as he'd go on to win that year's Townsend Thorson Junior Formula Ford 1600 title. 1987 came around and saw Warwick move up to the Formula Ford 200 category, taking runner-up honours behind future Formula One podium getter JJ Leto. Paul would be then promoted up to British Formula 3, where he would spend 3 seasons. 1988 would be a warm-up season, placing 8th in the Class A standings for Eddie Jordan Racing, then moving to Intersport Racing in 1989 and Superpower in 1990. But during these 2 seasons, the high expectations set on young Paul would not be met, and he would dwindle down the lower placings in British F3. But we'll cut him some slack due to his 1990 season being cut a little bit short, as he would compete in the International F3000 Championship for the Leighton House-backed March team. Unfortunately, the car was relatively poor, and Paul would yet again be underachieving. But as he got accustomed to the power increase, he would begin to shine, taking part in 4 rounds in total at Brands Hatch, Birmingham, Le Mans and Nogaro. 1991 was where we saw how talented Paul truly was. He would move to Nigel Mansell's team Mansell Madgwick for that season's British F3000 season. He would begin by taking pole securely in Oulton Park, but would be overtaken straight away after a poor start. Paul was then on the back foot, putting massive pressure on the mighty Lola of Richard Dean. Warwick was struggling to get by the leader, but Dean would make a costly mistake on the approach to Lodge. He'd clipped the curb and pulled his nose comb loose, with Warwick taking the lead and victory comfortably in his first race. The next event would take place at Donington, where he would yet again show his undoubtable talent, taking victory by 1.3 seconds over Phil Andrews. It would get even more dominant though at Brands Hatch, as he won by 25 seconds over Julian Westwood. The series would remain at the Kent-based circuit for another round on the Indy circuit. This one would be a lot closer, with Paul winning by just 1.2 seconds over Dave Coyne in the GJ Motorsport Reynard. Round 5 would take place at the world-famous Oulton Park for the second time in 1991. Paul would take pole by just 0.8 of a second over Frederick Ekblom. Paul was comfortably leading the Gold Cup race when he would approach Nickelbrook for what would be his final time. This corner in 1991 was not what we see today. In modern times, there is a chicane at this part of the circuit, but back then it was a fast right-hander, and as Paul approached at 140 miles per hour, a wishbone failure sent him head-on into the Armco barrier, with his car disintegrating on impact, sending Paul flying out of his car. Unfortunately, he would not survive this accident, and would be awarded the win due to countback before the red flag. His incredible run of form, which included 5 wins, 5 poles, 5 fastest laps, and 4 lap records, would be enough for the 22-year-old to win the 1991 British F3000 Championship. This accident would lead to a change to Knickerbrook. As aforementioned, it accommodates for lower speeds and more runoff at that particular section in modern times. And that year, the Autosport National Driver of the Year award would be renamed to the Paul Warwick Trophy, and would be awarded to the best young British racing driver of that year. That was not all. The main entrance to Oulton Park circuit is now named in his memory as well. So what could have been for Paul Warwick? Well, his success in the British F3000 series meant he would almost certainly be promoted to the International Series for 1992. From there, we'll never know what could have been for the 22-year-old. Would he have been good enough for Formula 1, or would he have to make a career out of other categories? It's a huge shame that such a mature young man was taken so soon as he grew into a sublime racing driver. This was the story of Paul Warwick, the lost British superstar. I hope you enjoyed, and may Paul rest in peace. Goodbye, guys.